Concord is a game in 2024, and clearly there are some problems with the game. At the start, when the game was first announced, at PlayStation Showcase this year, I was excited. Unlike the majority of people with brains, uh, the collective sigh that everyone kind of exuded when it was revealed to be a 5v5 hero shooter, I didn't really feel the same disdain just because off of the top of the head, I don't think of that many hero shooters that kind of fall into the Overwatch like genre. Only thing I can really think of is Overwatch, Marvel Rivals, and I guess uh Garden Warfare, which and Marvel Rivals isn't even out yet. So I was always kind of more on the hopeful side of this situation. I'm super sympathetic to games formatted like Overwatch and Dead by Daylight because I feel like they have a pretty rough time getting taken seriously just because the flagship titles and their surrounding communities aren't always the most willing to let another game into that category. Meanwhile, games like Souls likes, Battle Royales, roguelikes, and fighting games and even looter shooters don't give the games in those genres as hard of a time when they're announced, like Overwatch and Dead by Daylight. But at the same time, I think that's just a testament to how good both games are. But that's kind of a different conversation for another day. But Concord, I wanted to give a benefit of the doubt because I was hopeful. But now that the game has come out, I like to weigh in on it, and kind of just drop a little point. I don't see a ton of people talking about. And one of the reasons I think the main reason, honestly, that Concord isn't working, and it's because of the designs, clearly. I mean, it's kind of obvious, but kind of stick with me here. Because I think the only problem with this game is the characters. I think it runs smoothly enough to where if it was actually visually interesting, enough people would be willing to play it and play it over a long span of time. It's a little bit deeper than just character designs and appeal, which I think is already quite lacking a bit. In hero shooters, realism and practicality within the character designs don't quite work for this genre. What I mean by that is hero shooters are kind of built on bigger than life characters that make you feel cool and powerful while you play, right? Unlike COD or Siege or any type of horror game, hero shooters don't gain very much from being more realistic. I think that's a problem that a lot of AAA game companies have, where they think the more real their game is, the more appealing and more beautiful they are. But in a landscape where every game company can make a realistic game, it becomes more of what's unique and what's different over what's real and practical. The main point is that kind of above all other issues, I think the main problem is that the character designs are terribly vague and don't tell you enough about the character's story or gameplay. Like, I feel like in a game like a hero shooter where characters have, their regular weapon and they have their abilities, I feel like there should be kind of, I'll fucking draw it in MS Paint or something. I don't know. I feel like there should be kind of a circle. There should be able to be connections you can draw from the character to their abilities off of first look, and then there should be able to be another half circle drawn at the bottom. I'll show it where you can connect the visuals to the abilities when you first see them, and then after you play them, you should be able to connect abilities back to the character and the character design. And I'm just gonna probably go over a few, or maybe just the whole bottom row of the Overwatch roster start screen, just so I can kind of build the point around that. And I don't think every character design in Overwatch is perfect, clearly, but I think it does a lot better than Concord. And after I go over the bottom row of these characters, and then compare it to Concord, you'll kind of see what particularly I mean when I say there needs to be a connected circle related to character design and abilities, right? So if you look at someone like Reinhardt, right, you can see he has big armor on, and he has his hammer. I'm not sure if I should include their weapon because you don't always see their weapons in the start screen, but I'll just do the little connection here. You see the big like armor. As out of all the tanks, I think he is the most like armored person on this roster. So you could probably infer that he has something to do with defending, right? So if you look at him, he's big, he has armor, he looks like he's like a protector, like he could protect the people around him. So you connect the big armor and the protection over to him having a shield, and then you can see that he has, when you go to his gameplay and his abilities, you can see that he holds a hammer, a big hammer, he throws up his shield, and he like does his like charge attack, and you can kind of connect that back again to his character design after you look at his abilities, and you're like, this is a good through line. Like, it kind of makes sense that, you know, Reinhardt is holding a big hammer and he throws up a big shield. Like, those abilities make sense with inside of the character and the character design. Whereas for some other characters, it's like, okay, I can see why they'd have this ability, and then you find a different ability that they have, and you can't really, you have a hard time making that like fill in that full circle, right? If we look at Roadhog, you can see he's kind of like, he's a bigger man, but if you look at his design, I mean, it's kind of not fair because he does have his like hook and stuff, but it makes sense within his character. Like, he looks like someone from like a junkyard that has like this like makeshift like body armor and contraptions that he kind of just uses to hurt people, you know? Like, he has his hook and he has his little like potion that you see in his character intro, and then you connect that into the abilities, and you see he has the hook ability, and he has his little his like self heal, and but you also see that he has like his pig pen, like the trap that he puts on the floor, and then you can connect that back to his character and his character design, and you can kind of connect it a little bit to Junkrat because they're kind of like one of those duo characters that we see a lot of in Overwatch, and it just all kind of makes sense. Like, okay, he has a hook, he has an ability that makes a hook, he also has a heal, and he has a trap. It makes sense within his character design that he's using items that he probably found on a junkyard. He looks like someone from a junkyard. It makes sense, you know? Then we have like Sigma. I feel like Sigma is kind of one of the worst, not worst, but like as far as like design and my philosophy of like the little circle, I think he doesn't do a great job of doing that just off of design, just because his design is kind of super vague. But even still, at the same time, I feel like you have a hard time making that first like arc in the circle to connect his design into his abilities, because I feel like you couldn't really assume that his design leads to his abilities. But once you see his abilities at the very least, and then come back around to the character design, I feel like it makes sense in your brain. You're like, okay, now this looks like a character that does these things and have these abilities based. After you go back from his abilities and look back, you can still make that connection even if it isn't a full circle, right? If you look at Winston, he's a big fucking monkey. So you make the connection, oh, he's a monkey, he probably can swing or has really good mobility, or he can jump around, or maybe he has like an ability where he can like be a monkey and like go real crazy. You can connect that to those abilities, and then once you see his abilities, and then you can see, oh, he does monkey stuff, but he also has like a taser rifle, and he also has like a fucking what is that thing called, a shield. And you're like, okay, the shield doesn't really make sense in like the context of this character being a monkey. But then you go back and you look back at the character design, and you can see, okay, now I can see kind of why he would have a shield. Him having a shield based on his design and his character makes sense. Him having like a big taser rifle instead of just punching people with his hands makes sense within his character design and how he looks and how he behaves, right? Wrecking Ball, the same shit. It's a wrecking ball. Fucking, you think he's gonna roll around, you go to his abilities, he rolls around, first connection, he has a fucking what's that, fucking a grappling hook. Look back at his design, it kind of makes sense because like the hamster and the kind of wheel, and it's like a wheel. I feel like the first connection is there, but for Wrecking Ball, not as much for the second one. But even Zarya, I feel like where the first connection, again, you probably, just like Sigma, you kind of can't make that first connection. But then you go to the abilities and you go to the weapon, and you can kind of see that all her abilities don't really rely within her, and it relies more within her weapon. And then you come back to the character design and it makes sense, you know. Fucking go to Reaper. I feel like I don't even need to talk about Reaper. Like, he looks like the Grim Reaper. You can assume some things like, oh, maybe he can teleport, maybe he can go invisible, maybe he can phase, maybe he has like a ghost form or something. You go from Reaper and his design to his abilities, they make sense. You go from his abilities back to his design, it makes sense. It connects. Sojourn, same thing. I feel like, well, kind of not as much. You kind of wouldn't be able to make that first connection. I feel like for her, you can't just kind of assume that like she has a big jump, but you might be able to just based off her being kind of like an android or whatever. But you kind of make the first connection. You look at her abilities, second connection. Soldier, he does regular soldier shit, like throws a fucking bomb and like shoots a rocket. First connection, second connection. Sombra, she looks like a hacker. She goes invisible. First connection, she can teleport to her little cube and he throws something that hacks and does damage over time. Second connection. I feel like Symmetra, same thing. Teleporter to Terrence, ability back to character design makes sense. Torbjorn, I fucking hate you. Tracer, you can make the connection from like her speed and her teleports, and she looks like a fast character, so you might think she's a little bit faster. She's a little smaller, she might be able to move a little quicker. To her abilities, they make sense, and then from the abilities back to the character, and everything kind of creates a tight circle. Venture looks like they fucking eat rocks to digging underground. She has a they have a big like fucking drill on the fucking that they go into, turn into a mole. The abilities make sense when you look back at the character, right? I feel like Overwatch does a good job of kind of creating that circle, which makes it very easy for people to pinpoint and identify and kind of look at characters and see what makes them unique and find out what they like about that character and kind of identify with them. And that's, I think, why Overwatch has really good characters. And like I feel like a lot of people agree with, Overwatch is built on its characters. Like, if it was this same game but it looked like fucking Concord, it would not be as big as it is. It would not sell as much as it is. The fucking, I'm not even gonna, you know, the people like the characters, okay? That's all I'm gonna say. People really like how some of these characters look, and kudos on them for, you know, popping off with the character designs. And I think what I'm trying to say the most in Overwatch is you can tell a lot about the characters and their gameplay just off of like the select screen and their fucking designs. And even if you can't tell a lot about the characters, like you can't make that first connection like I was kind of talking about with Zarya and Sigma and maybe Sojourn, at the very least they're still unique and interesting enough, even within like those duo pairings that I was talking about before, like Genji and Hanzo, Junkrat and Roadhog, Zenyatta and Ramatra. Like each character, even when they're kind of in the same world, they both have their own identity, which can draw you into each character separately. And say what you will about your least favorite like Overwatch character, like based purely off of design, I feel like Overwatch, like in my like experience, I haven't played a game that feels this diverse when it comes to pick rates. Like in Overwatch, I feel like there isn't any character I feel like I never see in any game. Like besides Doomfist, because of racism. I feel like there's no character that I feel like I'm like, oh, I've never seen someone play them. Oh, why are they playing them? Nobody ever plays them. I feel like I never say that with anybody in Overwatch, just because and I think that's a testament to how good these character designs are, to where in this big ass roster cast, it feels like each character gets played very often enough for me to feel like it's not a gap like within the pick rates. I'm sure there is if you like look at the actual numbers, but just off of visuals and experience, I feel like everyone gets picked quite often. Like everyone gets their time to shine, you know? And then if we compare like Overwatch to Concord to Marvel Rivals literally has the freest win when it comes to being able to connect that circle I was talking about earlier. And is based off of the characters, because Marvel literally has like a layup when it comes to this, because you don't even have to look at the character to make that complete circle that I was talking about before, right? Because if it's like a game like Marvel Rivals, you have Marvel characters. So you can just say somebody's name. You can say Spider-Man. You can draw a visual of Spider-Man in your head. You don't even need to connect it. You think of Spider-Man, you think of web shooters, you think of web slinging, you think of fucking doing karate kick moves and being super athletic. You can make that whole circle without ever actually looking at this game's version of that character. So if someone's like, oh yeah, you can play as Hulk, you can play as Thor, you can play as Iron Man, you can play as Spider-Man, you can play as Moon Knight, you can play as fucking Jeff the fucking Shark. Like, you make that whole design circle in your brain before you ever look at them, which means you already make your choice on who you be interested in playing before you even touch the game, right? And that's like one of their strongest suits, is because they don't have to convince you to play any character, because you already, if you're going to play a Marvel game, you know what characters you like. They don't have to sell you on a character. And even the characters that they do sell you on, I will say, after I paid $70,000 to get a Marvel Rivals beta code, I will say the characters look really good, even just outside of the ones that you already know. When you think of, like, if someone told me I was gonna be playing fucking Mantis in Marvel Rivals, I would have shot them. But their character looks good, and it makes sense. Like, their design makes sense and their abilities make sense, and it's just fun to play. And then the same thing with Garden Warfare. They have an IP to rely on, like, to go back on, so no one's gonna be like, oh, I'm mad that Pea Shooter isn't able to fucking chomp on somebody and spit them out and shoot a laser beam, because no one's going into the game thinking that Pea Shooter is gonna do that, because they already know what Pea Shooter does, right? But sorry for the tangent. When are we gonna get a DC hero shooter? Anyways, um, I kind of don't even want to go into like character reviews for Concord, because I feel like they do kind of such a bad job. But I will kind of attempt to make that circle and see why that like creative design gameplay circle doesn't work for the whole Concord roster. And I'll kind of just weigh in on why I think a lot of these designs are unappealing. Okay, they're kind of starting out strong, I think, with Tio, but they're also not coming out strong. I feel like you could probably make the connection that this looks like a regular ass soldier, and he'd only have what, a smoke grenade and a cluster bomb. I feel like you could assume that. Um, if you looked at his abilities alone and went back to his character, I mean, I guess you can see that as well. The character is just ugly though. Like, I will say this, Concord feels like they do a lot of random for random. You know, what is that one shoulder pad play into his character? Where does it get implemented into his character? Nowhere. That'll be like if fucking Doomfist had one big buff arm for no reason. And they're just like, yeah, let's give him one big buff arm, but like give him a little, like, a cluster grenade and a smoke grenade. And like, he got a big arm. Why does he have a big arm? Does it have anything to do with his abilities? Nah, it just kind of looked cool, so we threw it in there. They're like, Tio's big buff one shoulder pad, it doesn't do shit. I think that, like, randomness for random, why does he have one and not two? Maybe something in the story that's gonna tell us. Nobody's gonna make it that long, buddy. No one's gonna watch. Your baby's gonna fucking burn. Nobody cares. Hey Mar, I will say, outside of the circle I'm trying to connect, I will say this is one of the better designs. I think it's super simplistic. I think it's super regular. What does she even do? Oh, could you tell, like, if we took the weapons away, because weapons are kind of cheating. If we took the weapons away, would you be able to tell that she throws fire? No. If you took the weapons away, would you think she would have a Phoenix stun? No. But the character doesn't look bad. If you look at the abilities and then look back at the character, can you make that connection? Still no. Maybe the balls on her belt might be able to like tee you off that she has like a little eyeball, like a little flash that she can throw. Sure, but you can't, there's nothing that tells you either way. You can't assume her abilities off of her design, and then after you look at her abilities, you can't find that anywhere in her design outside of the fact that in her intro she's holding the fucking bomb, you know? Star Child, I will say he's kind of like Malga in the sense that just because he's big, or like Winston, where like just because he's big, you can assume a lot of things about him. You can assume that he probably has a run, he has a rush, and then what else does he do? He has a rush and a slam. Like, okay, you can assume that based on his ability. I mean, based on his like visual design, but it's just because he's big and he looks like a monkey a little bit, right? I also would like to say that I don't know what the fuck this guy is supposed to be. I don't know if his head is a part of his body or if it's like a genetic like mutation or like augmentation. I don't know if those steel plates like in his body, I don't know what that's for. It's kind of hard to tell what he's aiming to be, but and like since it's a space game, I don't know if this is just a species that comes out the womb fresh like this. I'm kind of confused on what he is, but I will say he's big, so he does kind of complete the circle. He's big. You can assume he probably runs at you, probably slams you. You go through the abilities and you can kind of see it makes sense within his character design. Um, I don't think he looks terrible. It's a little confusing. It's like I don't really know what's going on here. Imari, it looks like a space marine. Uh, looks like she'd have a shield. Again, it's just it and a shield barrier. I mean, they make sense. It completes the circle. I will say that it does a good job of completing the circle, but not in any interesting or unique ways. This is literally just a space marine. I feel like the developers were like they were designing these characters like they didn't have like this was real life. You know what I mean? Like, and they were rummaging around for scraps and putting shit together. Like they couldn't just make anything out of their fucking brain. Like it just looks ugly. I don't. It's too practical to be cool, and like a little red flag on her shoulder. I guess you know it just doesn't. It doesn't. I think that you probably wouldn't be able to assume what she does off of her abilities. But I think if you look at her abilities and look back on her, you can kind of envision that. So I'll give him points for that. But at the same time, you can't like, no one's gonna give you props if like you get 20 points in a game from shooting like free throws, you know? Like, or if you get cherry picked 20 points in a game, you know? Like, just because you accomplished the mission, especially when it comes to design, just because you got the job done, it doesn't mean like that's it. You know, you have to add some appeal, you have to add some style, some swag. Like, no motion, none of that. She has a spork. She undetected, detected, decided. Whoops. She has a sport. It has a spork on their neck. Why? For random, because fun. They teleport just out of thin air for no reason, and I'll touch on it a little bit later. But I think, why do they do that? Because they're alien. I don't know. Roku, I do like the design, but if we're sticking to the kind of the thing of like taking away the weapon that they have, I don't think I know that this person can fly directly in a straight up and down fashion off of this design. I honestly, if I just looked at this, I don't know. I don't know what I would assume this person plays like. It's very generic, very bland. It could be a lot of things. It could be like a person who goes into space, or it could be like someone who is in like a fighter pilot, or like it even kind of like outside of the helmet, it does look like you could like might be able to dive in it. Like it's just kind of confusing without like the weapon and already knowing what they do, you know? Like I'm sure like if you do the like I said the abilities back to character, sure you can see that like they have a rocket and they shoot rockets and they can go up into like the air and like do shit with that. But at the same time, it's like it doesn't really connect. Like you're like it's not like, "Oh yeah, that makes sense." It's like I can see that, you know? Linux, would you be able to tell that he has an exploding throwing knife and he can heal his teammates? Probably not. Definitely, I definitely don't get healing my teammates from this character design. And even if is that a knife on his belt? I can't see at the picture I'm looking at right now. But even then, I feel like it's not like even if you go back and you're like, yeah, he heals his teammates and he has a throwing knife. That's is are his two very boring basic abilities. Even then, I feel like you wouldn't be able to like, oh yeah, this person looks like he does those things. He looks like he throws those things. It's just again, even if it doesn't connect, at the very least, make the character look cool. Like this looks like somebody's fucking stepdad. Like I'm not trying to play this man. Jabali, I think this character looks fine. Props for not getting the Killmonger, I guess. But like if you told me this is this game's equivalent like ability wise, if this is this game's equivalent to Moira where he throws fucking a damage orb and a and a heal orb, I'd shoot you in the face cuz there's nothing on this character like you would never be able to guess that. And then after you see the abilities, you'd be like you'd still have no idea where that factors into his like factors into his design, where any thought was put into his design. It just feels like they random selected a character design and then random they fucking Hikari fucking lucky gambled their fucking like what do you call it? What do you call it? They just like random roulette slotted their fucking abilities on a separate wheel. Like this doesn't like they don't connect. I think this looks fine, but they don't connect at all. Davers, this is an ugly skin. I have a very large disdain for this skin. I will say you probably couldn't make a connection from the design to the abilities just because it's kind of up in the air about what it like what even this person is. But like once you see that they kind of shoot slime, you can kind of be like, okay, this person probably has had to deal with slime and like they're hazmated off, so like the slime doesn't have an effect on them, but like they're also shooting it at the same time, so it's kind of like you're like it's a little I'm confused on what your job is in life. I don't know if you're trying to run away from it, but you also have it on your back. I don't really know why you exist in this world, but like you can kind of see it. I just think it's really ugly. I think the fucking is that a mullet? I think I just really don't like this. This is kind of ugly. What do you even do? I guess you could probably assume that they have some like security thing, like technology because it's a robot. I think this design is also again just not unique. CP30, CP30, CP30 fucking did it better. I don't know why they put this robot in this lame ass suit. It's not. I've seen. Shout out Atomic Heart for making hard robots. But like, I don't know. This just super isn't interesting. It's just not. It's just a human robot. Like if you're gonna go for the whole robot like humanoid thing, I feel like there could have been some cooler things you could have did. Val kind of pisses me off because like this design isn't bad. It's just I want to touch on the hair because I think it's kind of silly that people in real life do this hairstyle better than the fictional character. Like they were like, oh, let's give them braids, but like braids are kind of boring, so like let's curl them on the end. But they didn't realize that it's a real life hairstyle, so they didn't like go crazy with it. And they're like, oh my god, this is so crazy. We just did some shit that's fucking new. When people in real life do it way better. I don't even think people with like braids like this do curls like this with like that thick of a fucking like hair. Like it's just not. I mean the design looks fine, but like I said, connected back to the abilities, the leap. I guess she has bionic legs. I guess, and then the trip mine. Nothing about this says trip mine. Like I said, if you look past their gun and just look at them as a person, I would not know this. Maybe like I could see the leap, because the leap is kind of the same thing with Sojourn, where like you kind of see it after the fact, but still like it still looks ugly. Like this looks like your normal average DMV employee. Like it's not pulling me in. One off. Um, robot, robot. It's just Baymax. Would you be able to know that this has anything to do with like air and trash bombs? Like, no. If you go back to the character design after you look at its abilities, no. It just looks like a regular robot. Like, it looks like it's filled with water, not like it's like a trash air robot kind of thing, you know? I mean, it doesn't look terrible. Um, but it's not the coolest robot I've ever seen ever, you know? It's I am doing this on like a thing where I'm like trying to make the circle with every character, which is what I'm like tracking them with. Um, which is why I'm kind of sad, because I do like their design actually. I do think it's is kind of one of the better design characters, but this game's like equivalent of Sombra. And compared to Sombra, they have the exact same toolkit. I'm gonna be 100% honest with you. They do the exact same fucking thing. You just can't tell. Like I'd be able to see like this girl having like a dash attack where like she does like a fucking slash with her hands, or like really good mobility, a slash with her hands, and maybe like a shape shifting ability. I don't know why this character does give like mystique shape shift, or like just some like mobility abilities, that like move her around the map faster, like how Soldier has like his speed walk, and like Sojourn has like their jump, and Baptiste can like jump super high, have a super jump. Like I feel like this gives a lot of like animalistic like athleticism. But no, she just throws bombs, a cosmic thing that she can throw out of her body apparently, and if she snaps her fingers, she can teleport to it. Why she can do that, I can only assume it's because of her race. I'm not, I can only assume that's just something everybody who looks like her can do, because there's no like nothing tells me you can like shape shift and fucking teleport your atoms across the map. Nothing about this design tells me that. And then you have the hack bomb that they throw that like disables the weapon. Nothing. Why can you do that? I can't. There's no connection. There's no point A to B, and there's no point A to point B, and there's no point B to point A. It doesn't make any sense. But I do like this design outside of the fact that you kind of wouldn't be able to know what this character does looking at her in her face. And it's kind of weird. Might be the never mind. Daw, this is just fucking Ned. I don't want to talk about you. Duchess. Again, nothing about this character would tell you what her abilities are. Would you be able to tell that she makes a fucking wall out of thin air and she can do a AoE pulse bomb purple shit just off the strength of her muscles? No, they wouldn't. If you looked at her abilities to look back at her, you can be like, okay, she looks a little mystical, But this looks like somebody's fucking grandma who didn't get her retirement check, so now she's still working at her job way past her prime. Like, I think it looks cool. I will say that, having like an old lady kind of suited up, still in the action. But like, even then, like, it's not great. It's not great. It's not swaggy. I feel bad for her that she still has to do this job at her old age of 76, you know? Bass, bro. This bitch pisses me off, dude. Like, they be cheating, putting the weapons in their hands, thinking that's gonna bring the whole shit, the whole shaboing boing together. If you didn't see this character with the knives in her hand, and she walked up to you, and I was like, this person is about to kill you. What do you think? What do you think is about to happen to you? I'd bet on my fucking life I wouldn't think I was about to get hit with a fucking throwing knife. I'd bet everything in the world I wouldn't get hit with a fucking throwing knife. And her other secondary ability is a shuriken. So I guess what they're going for here is that she's kind of like a ninja assassin, which doesn't make fucking sense because this fucking outfit is louder than the fucking Big Bang. So like, assassin really kind of doesn't work here. Why does she have these big fat shoulder pads if she's supposed to be like a sleek assassin that kills with throwing knives and shurikens? I don't know. It just doesn't work. Like, why would you give this person like assassin like abilities? Like, it works better as an assassin, or fucking the robot works better as an assassin, or like the first girl, Hamar, looks better as an assassin if she's gonna throw throwing knives and shit like this. This girl probably looks like she has more fire abilities than Hamar does, right? But you just wouldn't be able to tell that off of the fucking character. And then if you look back at the abilities, point B to point A, nothing about you tells you that this person throws throwing knives and also throws shurikens and fucking, what else do they do? Throw another shuriken that does extra damage. It's just not working out. And you know, I'm also getting, like, after going over the cast, I feel like one of the other issues is that its world building is kind of shot. And it's maybe because it's new and it hasn't really established much yet, but I feel like the power scaling in this cast is kind of like all over the place. Like, you have like Devora, who can teleport to her shroom mushroom because she's part plant fungus, I guess. And then you have Itz that can teleport for a whole different reason with like unassisted. And then you have like old ass lady who can make fucking force field bomb walls and blow up people. And then you have like some sentient robots, and then you have a bunch of regular people, and then you have a bunch of like aliens here that also function as just regular people. So it doesn't really make sense, you know? Whereas Overwatch, I feel like if you look at all the character designs along the cast, maybe except for Reaper and Moira, their powers and their abilities are just science and technology and engineering. Like, Overwatch is just a regular world if like everyone came out the womb like Jimmy Neutron. Like, everyone has their abilities because of some technological like advancement. Like, Sombra isn't just teleporting because Sombra wants to teleport. Fucking Farah isn't just flying because Farah wants to fly. Junkrat isn't just blowing up shit and it comes out of the palm of his hand. Like, it's because of technology, so everything makes sense because everything is like, you can understand the world that we're in. Whereas in Concord, it doesn't really make sense. There's no through line. There's no reason for, like, why wouldn't you make every bounty hunter in the world just Itz or just Devora? Because they can teleport and get in and out really quickly. And apparently everyone in their race can do that because there's nothing saying otherwise within the character design that they're special among their people, right? But anyways, the script is kind of long, so let me just wrap it up. I think Concord's biggest problem is its design and the world these characters inhabit. Honestly, probably be much better if this game was like super offensively bad, but it's just boring and unoriginal. This game is like Guardians of the Galaxy and like the Star Wars universe had like illegitimate child. Like, these characters just feel like someone hit a randomize button over and over again and then got something that they kind of liked but didn't want to risk hitting randomize and getting something worse, so they just like went with it. The style is too realistic to give the game any unique characters, and the characters aren't anything to write home about. And it's just sad because the game is like, if you listen to anybody talk about this game, you know the game isn't bad. Like, mechanically, the game is super good, and its designs just aren't unique or cool enough to get a bunch of people to play it, and it isn't bad enough for people to just be interested enough to see what it is or even play it out of spite. It's just another game in 2024.